A book written in a language no one understands, bound in the soft, worn skin of a calf that once grazed in medieval fields, its pages thick with centuries of silence. On them, curling lines of an alphabet that matches no other on earth twist like vines, tangled in meaning we cannot untangle. Between the words bloom drawings of plants that cannot be found in any forest or garden, their roots curling into strange jars, their petals unfolding into shapes that feel both familiar and alien. Across other pages, strange astronomical diagrams spiral outward. Stars that don't match our constellations, moons with unknown phases, circles intersecting in patterns that seem to whisper of a logic just out of reach. And then, there are the women, dozens of them, naked, pale, delicate, and strangely serene. They bathe in green pools of water that glisten as if lit from within. These pools are connected by tubes, winding like arteries, as if the whole thing were a map of some otherworldly body or machine. For over 6 centuries, this strange object has haunted the minds of those who dared to open it. The Voynich Manuscript, named for the man who stumbled upon it in the dusty archives of an Italian college in 1912, has resisted every attempt to decode its secrets. Kings and emperors, spies and scholars, scientists and codebreakers, even modern artificial intelligence, all have tried, all have failed. And in that failure, the mystery has only grown deeper. Some whisper it is the key to a lost civilization, a guide to forgotten medicines, cosmic truths, and ancient sciences that the modern world could barely comprehend. Others believe it is an elaborate joke, crafted by a long-dead trickster to confound generations yet unborn. And a few, a very few, suggest it is something stranger still, a message not meant for us, written by minds that were never human. We open its pages now, but we do so carefully. For what you are about to hear is not a simple history, it is a labyrinth, one where every corridor opens into another question, and every answer hides behind another locked door. It begins, for us, in the year 1912. But the story, the real story, begins much earlier. Wilfred Voynich was no ordinary book dealer. A Polish revolutionary in his youth, he had fled political oppression, survived exile, and eventually reinvented himself in London as a collector of rare manuscripts. He was a man who loved books not just for their words, but for the worlds they contained. That year his work took him to the Via Mondragone, a grand Jesuit college just outside Rome. The college, pressed for funds, had quietly decided to sell some of the treasures from its library, treasures that had been hidden from public eyes for centuries. Among the stacks of theological treatises, illuminated psalters, and faded atlases, one item stood out immediately. It was not gilded or ornamented with precious stones. It was small, almost modest in size, about 23 by 16 centimeters. Yet it radiated a strange gravity. Voynich opened it. At once he knew he had never seen anything like it. The handwriting was precise, almost mechanical in its consistency, but entirely alien in form. Each character was a looping, graceful shape that seemed as though it should be readable, yet was utterly meaningless. Voynich flipped through page after page, his eyes catching on the bizarre illustrations, strange flowers with impossibly tangled roots, pools of liquid linked by tiny naked figures, constellations no astronomer had charted. In some drawings, the stars shone like jewels. In others, spirals and circles spun together in ways that seemed mathematical, but whose purpose could not be guessed. The more he turned, the stranger it became. Voynich purchased the book immediately. In his hands, it felt like a treasure map, except that no one knew what treasure it pointed to, or where it might lie. He would later say that he felt certain he had found the most mysterious manuscript in the world. He was right. When news of the manuscript spread through scholarly circles, it caused a stir. Linguists and cryptographers pored over photographs of the pages. Some thought the text was written in a cipher, an encoded language meant to keep its contents secret. Others suspected it was an invented language, perhaps a form of glossolalia, speech like babble put to paper. But the neatness of the handwriting suggested intent, structure, discipline. This was not the random scrawling of a madman. This was something composed, planned, purposeful. And yet no one could read it. In 2009, radiocarbon dating offered the first solid clue. The parchment itself, the very calfskin on which the manuscript was written, had been prepared between 1404 and 1438, placing it in the late Middle Ages. This meant that whatever its purpose, the manuscript had been created in a time of plague, superstition, and the flowering of European learning. But the ink might have come later. That possibility opened up unsettling questions. Could the pages have been prepared, stored for decades, and then written upon? And if so, why? The language, dubbed Voynich by researchers, contains about 24 distinct characters, written left to right. Statistical analysis has shown patterns. Certain letters appear more frequently in certain contexts, and words seem to follow rules, like in natural languages. And yet, these patterns match no known language on Earth. Not medieval Latin, not Old Church Slavonic, not Arabic, not Hebrew, not any of the hundreds of regional dialects that once thrived in Europe. During World War II, some of the most brilliant code breakers in history turned their attention to the manuscript. Men who cracked Nazi Enigma codes, who could untangle ciphers that decided the fates of armies. They all failed. Even modern artificial intelligence, trained on billions of words from countless languages, has failed to extract meaning from Voynich's. The manuscript seems to whisper to us in a tongue we should understand. And then there are the images. The botanical section contains over 100 plant drawings. Not one matches a known species. Some appear to be hybrids, fusing elements from unrelated plants. The leaves of one might resemble a willow, but its flowers are unlike any found on Earth. The roots twist into forms that seem impossible, almost anatomical, as if mimicking muscles or organs. The astronomical section is no less baffling. Here, suns and moons float in strange configurations. A few zodiac symbols are familiar, a bull for Taurus, a pair of fish for Pisces. But they appear alongside constellations that no star chart has ever recorded. Rings of stars spiral inward toward empty centers, like cosmic whirlpools. The biological section is the most unsettling. Naked women, drawn in an almost childlike style, bathe in green pools. Some are connected by long, tube-like structures. Others appear to emerge from flowers or to stand inside hollowed-out stems. The green liquid glows in the illustrations, suggesting some special property. Is it water? Medicine? Something else entirely? The pharmaceutical section shows jars, plant parts, and tools whose purpose is unknown. The recipe section is filled with paragraphs, each marked by a star-like symbol. Perhaps a bullet point, perhaps something more significant. Over the centuries, theories about the manuscript's purpose have multiplied. Some believe it is a lost medieval language from an unknown culture, its plants drawn from a now-vanished landscape. Others see it as a coded medical text, perhaps dealing with women's health, a dangerous topic in a time when certain knowledge could lead to persecution. Some imagine it as an alchemical guide, a fusion of herbalism and mysticism, intended to unlock the secrets of nature. And of course, there are those who say it is an outright hoax, a clever fabrication meant to impress, confuse, or deceive a wealthy patron. But even the hoax theory has a problem: to create such a manuscript convincingly. With consistent linguistic structure, hundreds of original illustrations, and no visible errors or corrections, would require immense skill, time, and planning. For what gain? And why has no other work like it ever been found? We know only fragments of its journey. Some records suggest it was once owned by Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who reportedly bought it for a sum that would be worth nearly $90,000 today. Rudolph was known for his interest in alchemy, astrology, and the occult, and his court was a haven for scholars and mystics. From there, it may have passed to an alchemist named Jacobus Horsicki, then to a series of scholars, and eventually into the hands of the Jesuits, until Voynich found it. In modern times, countless attempts have been made to crack the code. In 2018, a Canadian computer scientist claimed partial success, suggesting it was written in an extinct form of Hebrew, heavily abbreviated and intentionally scrambled. but his claims remain controversial, and most linguists remain unconvinced. And so the manuscript sits today, guarded in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, as much an enigma as ever. If it is real, it might contain cures for diseases, lost astronomical observations, or even philosophical ideas from a vanished culture. If it is a hoax, it is one of the most perfect ever made. And if it is something else entirely, then perhaps we are not yet ready to understand it. The real power of the Voynich Manuscript may lie not in what it says, but in what it refuses to say. It teases us, frustrates us, lures us into obsession. It is a mirror, reflecting our hunger for the unknown and our fear that some mysteries will never be solved. So imagine, you are the one who cracks it. You read the first sentence. The meaning blossoms in your mind like the opening of one of its strange flowers, and then you face the question, do you keep reading? Or do you close the book and leave its secrets untouched, knowing that what you learn cannot be unlearned? Tell us in the comments, if you could decode the Voynich Manuscript, would you read it, or would you be afraid of what you might find?